Making headlines tonight. The most welcome news for parents in Phnom Penh. After 6 months at home, their high school kids can get back to school next Wednesday. Messi overtakes Pelé to become South America's greatest goal scorer of all time. And 2 Cambodian films shine at the Venice Film Festival, with one of them set to represent the kingdom at next year's Academy Awards. This is the Daily Roundup on the EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. I'm Andrew Barnes-Roberts. After over 6 months of closure, schools in the capital are set to reopen next week. The Phnom Penh Capital Administration has decided to allow the reopening of secondary levels starting on Wednesday, 15 September. But it is stressing that all schools slated for reopening must first undergo inspections. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has our top story.
Harrods International Academy in BKK was inspected by the Ministry of Education on Friday morning. It was the first on the list, already approved to reopen next week after submitting the required documents 2 days ago. But the school administration has decided to reopen the week after. School Director Philippa Bason says they are looking at Monday, the 20th of September. And while they are excited at the prospect of reopening, their priority is the safety of their children. She says the past almost 7 months have been a challenge for their teachers, parents, and children, but a challenge that encouraged everyone to adapt.
Very. But it's also been a wonderful journey too. We have strengthened our homeschool partnerships. We've built trust with our parents, teachers, and staff have vastly increased their professional and personal capacities and skills. This week we have had all of the ministry visits for reopening, but we are also preparing for our Council of International Schools, CIS, visits and inspections as well to become a member school for them. So we have external accreditation for our quality of our school to an international standard. So it has been a very challenging time. But the best thing about this last 7 months is how our children have learned. They have become more confident, self-reliant, and they are more in charge of their own learning journeys.
EAC News also spoke to some high school students in the capital who say they're excited to get back to class.
I am so happy to hear about the reopening because it was hard for me to stay focused studying at home for a long period of time.
I'm also very happy after learning we are going back to school. I'm so excited and hope to see my classmates soon.
The date agreed by the Ministry of Education and Phnom Penh Capital Administration, Wednesday, 15 September, is just a starting point when both public and private secondary schools can reopen. EAC News did contact the ministry, but it says it has no further comment to make for now.
The school administrator says they've been surprised how fast things run. Although they have been preparing their staff, proper hygiene, and safety measures against COVID-19 for months. They can now finally see the light, with schools starting to reopen next week. Rhea Soko, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
In just 48 hours, Cambodia has registered 408 more cases of the Delta variant. They take to 3,731 the number of Delta patients who have or are being treated across the country. Most of them are in Phnom Penh, which, with 143 new cases, now has a total of 1,256. Banteay Menchez have increased 827, Oda Menchez to 287. Siem Reap has now reported a total of 231 Delta cases, with Kandal reporting 159 and Stung Treng home to 138. Croce remains the only town or province in the kingdom where the Delta variant has not been detected. On Friday lunchtime, the Ministry of Health also reported the country's new COVID-19 case numbers. They make for grim reading. 660 new daily cases have been recorded. That's the highest daily number since the 1st of August. There have been 12 deaths, but 417 recoveries. But for 2 weeks now, active cases have been steadily climbing. Currently, healthcare workers across the kingdom are treating a total of 3,246 patients. Cambodia's total number of COVID cases has now reached 98,184. The death toll is at 2,019. The number of successful treatments has climbed to 92,912. Prime Minister Hun Sen has delivered a video address to mark the opening of the 18th China-ASEAN Expo. This year's theme is about sharing opportunities to build a common future. In his address, the Prime Minister focused on the pandemic, China-ASEAN relations, and the kingdom's efforts to boost trade and investment. The Expo forms part of the China-ASEAN Dialogue Partnership, which marks its 30th anniversary this year. The Prime Minister says the past 30 years have become a solid foundation for ASEAN and China to pave the way in creating new opportunities to achieve a prosperous and environmentally friendly future. He says the fight against the pandemic requires solidarity, trust, consideration, and collective action with respect for international law and sovereignty. He says China and ASEAN must continue to promote cooperation, especially in finance and trade, in order to accelerate a post-pandemic recovery. The Prime Minister remarked how he'd like to see a greater opening up of markets and free trade flows in the wake of COVID-19 to facilitate investment flows into the kingdom as well as to boost exports. Despite being a resource-scarce country, he says Cambodia is committed to turning the pandemic into an opportunity for deeper reform to build a stronger economy that is more resilient. Applauding the country for its vaccination rollout and once again thanking China for its assistance, the Prime Minister says he's hopeful the high rates of vaccination in the kingdom mean the country could soon gradually launch a full range of socio-economic activities in the near future, hinting that Cambodia's new normal and the reopening of its international borders aren't all that far away. Cambodia's Senate will now consider a range of new draft laws that have been approved by the National Assembly. All focus on boosting trade and the economy. The draft laws were approved during Thursday's sitting, presided over by the President of the National Assembly, Heng Samrin. The draft laws approved include the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, the Free Trade Agreement with the People's Republic of China, the Law on Competition, the Law on Investment of the Kingdom of Cambodia, and the Law on the Approval of the Protocol amending the ASEAN Agreement +3 on Emergency Rice Reserves. A number of draft amendments to articles of the Labour Law and the Audit Law have also been approved. Once approved by the Senate, they will be signed into law by the King. The National Assembly says the new laws will provide better opportunities for the government to build and develop the nation. They'll see regional trade promoted and investment further expanded. Lawmakers are hopeful this will mean more market and employment opportunities. They're particularly proud of the draft law on investment of the Kingdom of Cambodia. It aims to attract quality, efficient, and effective investment through a new incentive regime, promises competitive and supportive socio-economic policies, together with a focus on modernization. Cambodia's brand spanking new sports complex is to be officially handed over to the country on Sunday afternoon. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi will symbolically hand the stadium over to Prime Minister Hun Sen, with the sports complex being a gift to the kingdom from the People's Republic of China. The ceremony will kick off Yi's 2-day official visit to Cambodia at the invitation of Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn. Yi is on a 5-day tour of Southeast Asia, having arrived in Vietnam on Friday. He will leave Cambodia for Singapore on Monday. The almost $200 million Moradok Decho National Sports Complex is the largest gift Cambodia has ever received. It took 8 years to build. Construction was completed just last month. Its design reflects the centuries-old relationship between Cambodia and China, resembling an ancient Chinese ship with its two 99-meter-tall prows. The stadium will be the centerpiece of the 2023 SEA Games, ASEAN Paragames. It has 5 stories and can seat 60,000 people. The complex is also home to an Olympic-sized swimming pool, football pitch, and indoor arena. A sports village, which will provide athletes accommodation, is under construction nearby. Located in Phnom Penh's Charoy Changva, the sports complex is the country's first multi-purpose international standard sports facility. EAC News will broadcast the handover ceremony live. Our coverage begins at 2:30 on Sunday afternoon. The pandemic has hit Cambodians hard, but perhaps no one group more so than people with disabilities. With the absence of tourists in Cambodia, many are struggling to make ends meet. EAC News visited the Village Works handicraft shop in Phnom Penh, where most of the workers are living with some form of disability. They are hoping that international tourists will be back soon. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the story.
Some of them used to beg on the streets until they found a place to discover new skills. A social enterprise named Village Works is located in Sambo village in the capital's Dang Khao district. Its founder, Anak No, has provided these people with a way to earn a living, making handicrafts, souvenirs, and bags. The target market was international tourists. But after 20 years, their shop located near Tol Sleng Genocide Museum was permanently closed in the wake of the 20 February community transmission event. No more tourists meant no more customers. It was hard for the team, but their founder had little choice.
The product that we make is for tourists and for gift. So we receive different smaller order from overseas, and if we talk about tourism, then everyone is affected. Like we have a shop in Tol Sleng Museum, it come to a complete no tourism, so we cannot sell the product we cannot offer the product to any tourists as they don't have, and we are focusing and move a little bit to other product.
Now their small factory has become their shop. Although hugely affected by the pandemic, they are still grateful for the small orders they do receive. Those orders mean work, and work means an income. One of the workers, Chun Line, who conducts quality checks, says the group has made the world of difference to her.
This job has changed my life. Life was so hard before, but after I work here, it helps me and my family financially. Our life becomes better.
The workers earn an average of $7 a day. It's not much, but it makes all the difference. With Cambodia eyeing a tourism restart from November, they believe that it will take time before sales go back to normal. But at least there is light at the end of what has been a long, dark tunnel.
The workers are badly affected with the ongoing pandemic. With their shop permanently closed, some of them are left with no choice but to still feel lucky to be able to work from home while taking care of their children with schools still closed. Rhea Soko, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
Thousands of people will gather in New York City, Washington, D.C., Arlington, Virginia, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania on Saturday to mark the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. Almost 3,000 people were killed when hijacked passenger jets were flown into New York's Twin Towers and the Pentagon. A third was brought down in a field in Pennsylvania by its passengers. Its intended target had been Capitol Hill. It was almost 90 minutes of terror that has changed the world we live in. Tuesday, the 11th of September, 2001. The North Tower of New York's World Trade Center already ablaze in what most people thought had been a terrible accident. American Airlines Flight 11 had flown into it at 8:46 in the morning local time. All thoughts of an accident evaporated at 9:03 a.m. when the South Tower was hit by United Airlines Flight 175. It was then that the world knew the United States was under attack. 34 minutes later, at 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 hit the Pentagon. At 9:59 a.m., back in New York, the unthinkable. The South Tower collapsed. A few minutes later, reports of the crash of United Airlines Flight 93 in a field outside the town of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Over in New York, at 10:28 a.m., the unimaginable. The North Tower collapsed as well. It was then that everyone watching knew the world had changed. A subsequent investigation revealed that United Flight 93 had been downed by passengers on hearing the hijackers' intended target had been the US Capitol. Those in the plane all knew what had happened in New York and Virginia. Osama bin Laden, the leader of the al-Qaeda network, was quick to claim responsibility. He was being harbored in Afghanistan by the Taliban. While the FBI launched its investigation into what would become called a spectacular failure of imagination on the part of US security agencies, the White House of George W. Bush launched its war on terror. A US-led coalition stormed into Afghanistan with the phrase collateral damage quickly entering everyday English. Thousands of men, women, and children killed, all in the relentless pursuit of one man. But just 3 months later, the then US president made this statement.
Thanks to our military and our allies and the brave fighters of Afghanistan, the Taliban regime is coming to an end.
He was right, at least at the time. But Osama bin Laden would continue to haunt the US for a further 10 years. It wasn't until April 2011 that he was killed in a raid by US Marines in the small Pakistan town of Abbottabad while an anxious White House watched. Back in Afghanistan, there was a US-backed democratically elected government, and signs life was settling down once again. But thousands of foreign troops were keeping the peace. Questions started to be asked about just how much longer they'd need to be there. Then President Barack Obama dropped in to visit troops at Bagram Air Base, pledging to end the war.
For many of you, this will be your last tour in Afghanistan. And by the end of this year, the transition will be complete, and Afghans will take full responsibility for their security, and our combat mission will be over. America's war in Afghanistan will come to a responsible end.
But it didn't. A full 7 years later, almost 20 years after the 9/11 attacks, a shambolic US troop withdrawal put the Taliban right back where they were. This time, though, they're promising to rebuild, as well as respect human rights within the framework of Islamic law. The world watches and waits to see if they keep those promises. While 20 years of war effectively achieved very little, the 9/11 attacks did indeed change the world, with a rise in terror groups and a shift in the global balance of power. But most fundamentally, it changed the way we travel. Airports have since adopted their own new normal, with pre-flight screening and seemingly never-ending security checks, with passengers needing to remove belts and shoes, wristwatches, and mobile phones. 20 years on, we all still remember where we were the moment we heard about what was happening in New York that September morning. It is a day the world will simply never forget. Let's take a look now at some other news making international headlines this Friday, the 10th of September.
5 Afghan journalists have been briefly detained and beaten for covering a protest by women in Kabul. They were taken to a detention center and held for more than 4 hours, while 2 of them were badly beaten at the hands of the Taliban, both sustaining injuries to their backs, legs, shoulders, and arms. Their faces were also bruised and cut. The Taliban's actions have sent a chilling message to the media in Afghanistan, where an independent press, much of it funded by Western donors, has flourished in the past 20 years. A Taliban government minister, who declined to be identified, says any attack on journalists would be investigated. The Taliban has vowed to allow press freedom, but incidents like this raise serious doubts.
The Italian Coast Guard has rescued 125 migrants huddling together on the rocky edge of a tiny uninhabited island. Their boat has started sinking near the larger island of Lampedusa. The migrants, including 49 women and 20 children, were said to be in a clear state of shock. Complicating the rescue were rough seas and jagged reefs. The Special Coast Guard rescue swimmers jumped into the sea to bring the migrants an inflatable raft. All 125 were hoisted safely aboard rescue vessels and taken to a holding center.
And Forensic teams are on the scene of a fire at a makeshift hospital that killed at least 14 people in the North Macedonian town of Tetovo. The fire occurred on Wednesday night, on the 30th anniversary of its independence from the former Yugoslavia. An explosion caused the fire. With the hospital made from recycled plastic, the fire spread extremely quickly. The modular COVID-19 unit was built last year to look after patients in the town of about 50,000 people. The prosecutor's office says DNA analysis will be needed to identify some of the victims. All those injured are in a serious condition. The country's health minister says 26 COVID-19 patients were being treated at that time.
Coming up on the Daily Roundup, a look at the day's sports news. Stay with us. EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. EAC News' audience is growing. Our YouTube channel has over 150,000 verified subscribers. To mark the milestone, we've received the Silver Creator Award from YouTube. It's given to channels with over 100,000 subscribers. YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki says the award celebrates EAC News' hard work and incredible achievement. She says we brought a unique voice and style to the world, but have also created valuable connections and built a community along the way. The next milestone we're going for is 1 million subscribers, and we'd really like that Gold Creator Award. So if you're not already a subscriber, head to YouTube and search for EAC News. Subscribers get alerts when the Daily Roundup is premiering and live events are streaming. Get all the latest breaking news and updates from Cambodia in English. The EAC News channel on YouTube. Cambodia made clear. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear. Fans in Buenos Aires were excited to see their favorite player, Lionel Messi, back home for Thursday night's World Cup qualifier, and they weren't disappointed. Argentina notched up a 3-0 win over Bolivia, and Messi became South America's top goal scorer of all time.
The night belonged to Messi at the Monumental de Nunes Stadium in Buenos Aires. Fans were excited to watch Argentina's first home game since the pandemic and were expecting to see Lionel Messi put in a brilliant performance. But even he couldn't have expected it would have been so brilliant. Just 14 minutes after kick, he opened the game with his first goal, scored his second in the 64th minute, and then bagged a hat-trick with just 2 minutes left on the clock. The 3 goals have the Argentinian captain 2 more goals than the mighty Pelé on the South American scoring chart. Argentina remained in second place behind Brazil in the 10th team qualifying group. The top 4 teams will automatically qualify for Qatar 2022.
It seems Japan has had enough of hosting sports celebrations for the year after a surge of COVID-19 cases in the country and an extension of its state of emergency. The Japanese Football Association has decided to pull out of hosting the FIFA Club World Cup. The tournament is due to begin in December.
The Paralympic Games in Japan finished just last week. Now, the Japanese government is committed to controlling its worst wave of COVID-19 with a declared state of emergency. The country was supposed to host the 2021 FIFA Club World Cup, but decided to relinquish its right to host the tournament. The event would have coincided with the 100th anniversary celebration of the Japanese Football Association. FIFA has confirmed the country's decision and expressed its thanks to Japanese officials. It says further details about an alternative host will be announced in due course.
South Africa has its first ever black free dive instructor. Whilst trying snorkeling on holiday in Bali back in 2016, Zandile Ndlovu fell in love with the ocean. She swiftly got her scuba diving certificate the following year and now has her instructor's certificate in what's known as free diving with no equipment. Meet South Africa's first black diving coach, turning the tide on decades of apartheid history in which water sports were reserved for wealthy whites. Every month during summer, Zandile Ndlovu takes youth from Cape Town's Langa Township for snorkeling lessons as part of an initiative under her Black Mermaid Foundation. It aims to introduce the ocean to the country's black youth, millions of whom live in impoverished townships where beach trips are a luxury and swimming skills in short supply.
The Black Mermaid Foundation does work to take kids from local ocean-facing communities to come on a snorkel trip and explore the water, get past the fear, and connect with the water in a way that allows us to believe that these oceans belong to us too. And ultimately, when we believe that we belong, and when we believe that certain things belong to us, then we will protect them.
The kids in her care are loving it.
I learned that don't be scared, learn to be brave. Sisani teach us to swim and to know everything in the sea. And we saw octopus, fish, shark.
I want everyone to be able to experience this as early as possible and recognize that the ocean is not a place that we need to fear, but a place that we could come at and enjoy and revisit the stories that we grow up with that keep us away from these oceans as well. And my joy is the moment when one of the kids says, "Oh, look, it's a fish," or "Oh, look, it's a starfish," because it means that they have transcended the fear space to actually look beneath the surface.
Established in 2020, the foundation currently pays for lessons, but is looking for funders to ensure it survives. All right, let's take a look at how the weather's looking for the start of the weekend. finally, 2 Cambodian films have been screened at this year's 78th Venice Film Festival. 600 movies from 75 countries were sent in for consideration, but only 92 were selected. The Cambodian films are White Building, directed by Kavik Nying, and the country's first ever sci-fi movie, Karmalink, directed by Jack Wachtel. Both directors managed to find some time in their busy premiere agenda in Venice to talk to EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko.
White Building has already been pre-selected to represent Cambodia at the Oscars in the Best Foreign Language Film category. It's set in what was one of the most well-known housing projects in Phnom Penh, built in the 1960s by Khmer and Russian architects Luban Hap and Vladimir Bodiansky. It was the country's first urban lifestyle complex for lower and middle-class Cambodians, when the capital's population boomed from 400,000 to 1 million inhabitants. By 2014, however, the government had made the decision that the dilapidated buildings would be demolished. The movie is set at that time. It tells the story of 20-year-old Samnam facing the prospect of gentrification, with his lifelong home set to be demolished. Pressure from family and neighbors also arise. The director himself, Kavik Nying, grew up in the building. We asked him how he felt knowing that the film will represent the country at the Academy Awards.
Yeah, for me, I'm very thrilled and excited that my first feature film has been chosen, for Cambodian Oscar, and I think it's very, an honor for me and for the team. And yeah, it's for me it's touching and so meaningful, and also to have the film premiere in Venice, and to be the first Cambodian to have in the official selection, I feel so proud.
The second Khmer movie screened at Venice is Karmalink, set in a dystopian futuristic Phnom Penh with Buddhist beliefs. The main character is a 13-year-old boy called Leng Heng, who has vivid dreams of his past lives. Together with his friends, he finds a technological tool that could help him to deeper into one of those dreams. California director Jack Wachtel told EAC News that in an unexpected way, the pandemic helped the production of the film's visual effects.
We kind of got lucky with the pandemic hit when we were starting the visual effects, and that allowed us to kind of take a deep breath and spend a lot more time on the visual effects than we were originally planning to. The visual effects took a long time for this movie. We put a lot of work into it. We did a lot of iterating.
He says he's excited for the Cambodian public to see the film.
It feels really special when you get to see it on the big screen because of the effects, we did a really strong work on the sound design. So you feel you can feel the bass and you can feel it surrounding you in the theater, and you can see these skyscrapers, you can see the augmented reality on the big screen. That's something that I think is going to be really exciting.
The Venice Festival ends on Saturday. With movie houses closed in Cambodia, it's not known when the 2 movies will be released in the kingdom. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Thanks for watching the Daily Roundup here on the EAC News channel. You'll get more breaking news and updates from our website. Head to www.eacnews.asia. You can also search for EAC News on Telegram and at your favorite app store. More from the EAC News team in the weekly Roundup tomorrow night at 8. I will see you then.